Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be doing a Swiggy homepage clone using HTML and CSS. So let us look what we'll be building today. So this is the Swiggy homepage and I'll be cloning this page with HTML and CSS. So the page consists of 4 sections. The first section is the topmost section, and this one is the second section. This is the third section, and the last section is the footer. Before we begin, let me tell you that Swiggy homepage is not a responsive web page. So this web page will not be a responsive one. Swiggy already has a mobile application for mobile phones, so this one will not be a responsive web page. Now let's begin with the coding. Let me get the HTML template first. In VS Code, to get HTML template, just write HTML:5 and press enter. Let's change the title to order food. Let me switch on the live server. Now this is the style tag. This is where we will be writing our CSS, and this is the body tag. Here we will be writing our HTML and some inline CSS as well. So I'll be writing the HTML for each section first, and then we will move on to the CSS. Let's begin with the HTML of section 1, that means the topmost section. We'll be giving an HTML section tag with an ID of section 1. Inside that we can see that the first section is split into 2 parts. This is the first part and this is the second part. So the first part is actually, we can say, 60% of the screen size, and the second part is 40% of the screen size. So for that, let's give a div and a class of float left. I'll be defining these classes in the CSS later, and a width 60. Inside, this is the first section and this is the second section. We will give it as float right and a width of 40. Inside the first section, this is actually aligned towards the right. So what we'll do is we'll give a div with a class float right and width, let's say 75%. Now inside the second part, there is only one image, so we are giving this image with a width of 100% and a height of 100%. Now the image source, I am just copying the image source, and I'll mention these image sources in the description of the video. Let's save and check how it's looking. So it covered the whole page. Once we finish with this, it will look good. Now in the first part, let's say this is the nav bar. Actually, this is not actually a nav bar, but let's say it's the nav bar for this web page. So let's give it a class of nav bar, and inside the nav bar there is a image that is the logo of Swiggy, and then let's give it a width of 240 pixels and a height of 100%. Here also I am just copying the image and pasting it here. Now inside the nav bar we also have nav buttons, that means the login and sign up. So let's give it a class of nav buttons, and let's give two buttons. Button, this one would be login, and the other one would be sign up. Below the nav bar we have these items, so one by one let's make these. The first one, let's give it a class of head, and the content would be cooking gone wrong. Below that we have another paragraph, which is, let's give it subhead, and order food from favorite restaurants near you. Let's save. Now we need to make the enter location section. So for the enter location, just below this paragraph, let's give a flex row, and inside the flex row let's give a search box. I'll be defining all these classes which I am giving later in the CSS. Input type as text, and placeholder as enter your delivery location, and class would be search input. Now the find food button, so that would be, I'm sorry, that this one would be locate me button. So this would be button class as locate me, and inside that say locate me. Now the find food button. So for that I'll be giving a button with class as search btn. Below this we have another paragraph that is will be a class of subhead, and the content would be popular cities in India. Now for the cities list, we will give a flex row, and inside it we will give list of cities with a class city. So I'm just copying and pasting it here. These are the cities. So with this our section 1 is over. Let's go to the CSS. Now first we'll be styling the HTML and the body tag with margin and padding 0 and a box sizing of border box. Let's give a background color of white as well. Now we'll style the section 1. So we'll just say height as 500 pixels. Float left, we'll say float left, and height as 100%. Now float right. For this we'll say float right and again height as 100%. Now width 60, width 60%, width 40, say width 40%, width 75, say width 75%. Let's save this and check how it's looking right now. So the image is in the right place, but we need to style all these stuffs. Once we complete the CSS, it will be all right. Now let's style the nav bar. For the nav bar, let's give a display flex and a justify content. Let's give it space between. Align item center. Width as 100%. Let's give a margin top of 50 pixel and lastly a height of 100 pixels. Let's save this and check how it's looking now. So the login and sign up button is kind of in the right place now. Let's style the nav buttons. Let's give it a width of 60%. This display would be flex again and justify content center. Now after the nav buttons, we have to style the login and sign up button as well. So let's do it. So for login, let's give it a border 0, a background color as white. Let's give it a padding of 10 pixel and 30 pixel. Here 10 pixel means 10 pixels from top and bottom and 30 pixels from left and right. Now after padding, we will give a color, that means the text color, as black, font weight as bold, and let's increase the font size to 18 pixels. Save this and check. Now login looks kind of okay. I mean, it's in the right place and it is designed as it should be. Now let's design the sign up button. Now for sign up, we will say background color as black, font color white, border none, font weight bold, font size will be equal, that means 18 pixel, and the padding will also be equal, that means 10 pixel and 30 pixels from left and right. Let's style the head now. So for head, give it a color black, margin top as, let's say, 45 pixels, margin bottom as 0, font size as 40 pixel, font weight bold, and letter spacing as 2 pixel. Let's save and check how it's looking. So the head is also looking as it should. So let's style the subheading now. Subhead, and color we will give it as gray, font size as 24 pixel, and a letter spacing of 2 pixel. Let's save this and check. So the subheading is also looking good now. Now after the subheading, we will give a flex row which we had defined in the HTML. Display would be flex and flex direction as row. After this, let's style the search box. So the search box would be, let's give it a width of 70%, a height of, let's say, 60 pixels, border as 1 pixel solid, starts as CCC, and overflow hidden. After the search box, let's style the search btn. So that would be width 20%, border none, the background color would be hash FC 9109, the text color as white, font weight bold, letter spacing as 1 pixel, and font size as 18 pixels. Let's save this and check how it's looking. So now we have to style the input and the locate me button. So let's style that. So we had declared the input as search input class, and let's give it a height of 60 pixel and a width of 70%, border none, padding left as 20 pixels and outline none, and a font size of 18 pixel, text color black, and a font weight bold. Let's save this and check. So now the input also looks as it should look. Now let's style the locate me button. So the class is locate me. So the locate me will have a width of 20%, a height of say 80%, a margin left of 10 pixels, border none, color gray, font size as 18 pixel, a background color white, and a border radius of let's say 10 pixels, and a transition of all 0.5 seconds. Let's change the border radius to 5 pixels. Now as we have declared a transition, so we have to declare a hover, locate me hover, let's give it a background color of F1, 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 and a cursor pointer. Let's save this and check. So yeah, it looks good now. Now let's style these cities. So I'll say city. Let's give it a padding right of 20 pixels, a color gray, and a font size as 18 pixels. Let's style the cities at odd positions. So let's say city and of type odd. We'll give it a font weight bold. Now save this and check. Now the first section is complete. Now we will move on to the second section now. Moving on to the second section, all the other sections except the section 1 are easy. So let's start with section 2. I'll first write the HTML for section 2 and we'll move on to CSS after that. Now I've declared a section with ID section 2. Inside that we need to give 3 elements which are of the same type, only the text and the images differ. So what we'll be doing is, let's give a flex row and let's give a style of justify content center. Now let's give a div of style as width of 25%, a display flex, a flex direction of row, let's give it flex direction of column, and align items center. Now inside this div we will have an image tag, that is the image, which will have a width of 30% and a height of 50%. With the image we also have 2 paragraphs. First one, let's say give it a class of head2, and let's give this paragraph a class of subhead2. Now I'll be pasting the source of image. I'll be giving all these resources which I'm using in the description box. Now let's just copy these div and paste it 2 more times. Now just change the image and the paragraph content. So our section 2 is done and ready. Let's save this and check how it looks without the CSS. So this is how it looks right now. Let's start with this CSS now. First, I'll style this section 3. Let's give it a height of 500 pixels. Sorry, this will be section 2 actually. So section 2, and width would be 100%. Height would be, let's say, 400, and a background color of RGB 44, 29 and 23. Save this and check. Now we have to style only the text, so let's style those. Those were head 2 and subhead 2. So head 2, let's give a color white, margin as 0 from top and bottom and 40 pixel from left and right, and a text align. Let's give, okay, let's remove this. For head 2, let's increase the font size to 28 pixel and font weight bold. Now for the subheading, let's give a color white, margin 0 and 40 pixel from left and right, and text align center. Let's save this and check. Looks good now. So our section 2 is complete, and let's move on to section 3 now. So section ID equals to three. Now here I have used a lot of inline CSS. Inside the section 3, we have again two div. One would be floating left and the other would be floating right. So let's give first a float left. I'm using inline CSS here. So div style, let's say float left, width as 50% of the screen, height as 100%, display would be flex, align items to the center, and justify content to center. Now after this float left div, we will be giving a float right div. In this, let's give a float style as float right, width as 50%, height as 100%, and a display flex. Inside the right div, you can see that there are only two images. So let's paste these two images first. So I'm just copying and pasting two image tags. I'll be giving the resource in the description box. These image tags have a height of 500 pixels and a width of 400 pixels. Now for the second image, I also have provided a style of position absolute, bottom 0 and right as 20%. So let's save this and check how it's looking now. So you can see that the second image comes on top. So for this, what we can do is we can declare this as position relative. Once we declare the parent div as position relative, I guess it should be okay now. Yes, it is okay now. Now let's move on to the first section of section 3. That means the left aligned div. Inside this, we will give another div with styling as float right. Height would be 50% and width will also be 50%. Inside this, we have two paragraphs. So one would have a class head and the second will have a class as the subheading. So I'm just copying and pasting the two paragraphs. Then after these two paragraphs, I'll be giving another div with class as flex row, and here will be two images that is for downloading from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. So once again, don't worry, I'll be giving all these resources which I'm using in the description box. So these image tags have a width of 200 pixel and a height of 60 pixel. So I guess section 3 is complete. So let's save and check. So this is how it looks without CSS. I guess no CSS is required. So let's do one thing. Let's give this section a height of 600 pixel. Let's save this and check. Looks good to me now. Now after this, we have a small footer, that is the last section. So let's give a footer. Inside this footer I'll be having three sections, you can say. The one is in the left, the other is in the center, and the last one is aligned to the right. So inside the footer, let's give an image first, that is the Swiggy logo. Once again, I'm just copying and pasting it here. Don't worry, I'll be giving the resource URL in the description. So I've given a height of 60 pixel and a width of 200 pixel to this logo. Then let's give a paragraph with a styling of color white, a font size of, let's say, 21 pixel, and inside this let's give a copyright sign. Copyright 2020 Swiggy. And after this we'll be giving a div with style as width 200 pixel and a display of flex and justify content space between and align items center. Now inside this I am just copying and pasting 4 image tags. These images have a width of 24 and height of 24. So these are the images. Let's style this. So in the section 4, let's give it a height. So the tag is footer. A background color is black. Give it a display flex. Justify content space around and a padding of, let's give it 20 pixel. Let's save this and check what's looking. So you can see that your web page is ready and it is looking good. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.